I'm sure you've all got lots of questions. I'm sure all of you are thinking about something important at this particular moment. Okay, we just had 3 presentations. I'm going to open it up to a Q&A for about 10 minutes now, but we might say that there's interesting questions for the project. Okay, so I'm just going to open it up. Any other questions? Maybe I should ask you a question. I'll take one more and then I'll open it. One more hand, please. Thank you. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I'm Graham. I just want to know if for this project, the amount of problems that we have to focus on, is it just that we focus in depth on one problem, or do we do like a general analysis of 3 problems, or do we try to do an overall conclusive analysis of all problems that may just influence us in a very brief concept?
Okay. All right. So the first question is around the problem frame. How many? Let's take the second question. Another Norman.
I'm Nika, I'm from graphic design. There seems to be a lot of confusion as to what exactly our purpose is, what we're supposed to do. Like, for example, we went to Westbury yesterday, and there was a lot of stuff going on there. So much that we didn't even have the time to visit all the sites. So we were just standing there, like, it was just a bit confusing as to what we're supposed to do at this point in time. Is it just a matter of you supposed to develop a research question and try to find solutions for it, or do research on that and how it can be improved, that type of stuff?
Okay. Cool.
Hey, I'm Yan, and basically they've kind of both touched on points from both those questions of concerns or just things that I'm also not too clear on, and then just adding to it, like for example this lecture that we just went through right now, do we have to find, do we have to go as in depth to find a type of research, I don't know, like a way or type of research that we have to like follow, or can we do it in our own way, like how we kind of feel we can best find solutions? I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I think, you can reinvent the wheel if you want to, but it's probably going to take you 5 weeks to figure out what a lot of people have done before. So I think what we've been giving you here is it's dense. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of research. I think that using a methodology that exists is very helpful, because it keeps you on track. It helps you know, okay, at this stage this is what I need to be doing, and ultimately at the end I need to do something. I think you need to choose what it is that your problem is all about. I mean, for example, I didn't go to Westbury, but it seems like Westbury and FITAS are very different places altogether. FITAS seems to be kind of desperate, and it doesn't seem to be a lot going on there. I mean, that's my perception. Whereas it seems like Westbury has a lot of things happening. So I think the designer would enter at a very different place in either of those contexts. The one in FITAS, it might be about actually trying to build community and figuring out where one could actually enter as a design intervention. Whereas in Westbury, it might be saying, okay, well, look at all these amazing things that are happening. How can we make it even better? I think that you guys are sort of struggling because you're so used to getting a brief that says A, B, C, D. But these are the processes that we go through when we write the brief in the first place. We've kind of already figured these problems out. But when you're into the real world, you don't get sort of as nice briefs as you might get in a student or lecturer context. Sometimes problems are really messy. And I think that this is where you're actually figuring out what works best in the context. And I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I think that's that's the other thing, is that you're all expecting that this is what must be done. It's not that at all. So I think the ball's in your court. You can come up with something that could be very broad, could be something very narrow. You might decide that this year you want to do something that in 5 weeks we have a result. You might find that what you want to do is just get something started that maybe can continue next year. It's quite different. But I think what would be important is the way that you write it up in the first place, so that you're intentionally going out to make sure that that is your strategy. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think you've covered it. I only want to add that what your designers are, you've got to look at the situation, look at the organization. What can my intervention improve, as you say? In advocacy lobbying, is it that kind of organization? Are we talking about basic human rights? Are we talking about the feeding scheme? Are we talking about growing food? Look at the organization, it's already there, invested. How can I, as a designer, improve what they are doing? In FITAS, it's much more broader. We've got a lot of old buildings that are screaming out for something to happen to them. They're not architectural marvels, but they contain social history. Put that together, look at what is possible, look at the organizations attached to the buildings, look at the broad open spaces in an area that the policy now says must be compacted, densified. What are the possibilities? There's a homeless shelter that's been there for more than 20 years. What are the challenges there? What is my design eye when you tell me? So it's about finding that one thing that jumped out to this so it's not necessarily to answer the first question, a very broad thing. It's a very specific thing, I would think. Very specific with an objective that can be met within 5 weeks.
And I wouldn't be over anxious about the solution. This project is very much centered on the problem. If you get my meaning, how do we get to the nature of the problem? It's being an integral part of the design process. Amira, and then, yeah?
I think it's important that the students understand that they're a part of a multi-year investigation. So what you're doing this year gets handed to the next year's group, and it's an investigation that you are our research assistants in a way. I think it's really important to understand that, and it's also important to remember that you will have community members as part of your teams. So through site visits, through conversations with the community members, you will then start identifying where your particular skills. And the interesting thing about these teams is that they are mixed in terms of disciplines. So that particular makeup of your team with that community member, where does that lead you in terms of where you might have a meaningful contribution? I also think it's important to differentiate between, are we doing community service or are we doing research and academic exercise? So there might be some of your projects that become a real, tangible service to the community, but some of them might not. And they get handed to the next year's team and they see what they can do with that. So I think it will evolve as you go along.
And I think just adding on to what Amira said, I think one of the failings of Green Week is that when you have these interdisciplinary teams, you all think, well, I'm a graphic designer, I need to design a logo. I'm an industrial designer, I need to design a product. I'm an architect, I need to design a space. But I think that you need to throw that concept out the door. You need to say, okay, these are my skills. How can we work together towards one common problem and really have an impactful solution? And it might be that maybe that solution is maybe more graphic-based or more architectural-based. But I think as designers, we need to, especially at the third year level, and above, this is quite a few master students here, is to be able to be flexible enough to know our disciplines enough to be able to work interdisciplinary.
Carrie Ann,
I just wanted to know, is it a lot, is it just like our building project that we did? collaborating with the community to find out in these different areas what's needed. We do all research for that, but we're not exactly doing the actual.
Yeah. Let me try and answer that question. I'm going to go back to the lovely word that I think Amiri used, the word investigation. It's a lovely word because it sums up our attitude to this project. As lecturers, we are seeing this for ourselves as an investigation. We don't necessarily have all answers because a lot of us are investigating these very issues in our own way. So we're seeing it as a collaborative project between us, you. In a sense, you create the argument for your project. We don't create it. So the organization that you choose to work with, how you proceed in the field, how you argue for your projects at the end, how you present your research and design problem, how you set up how much you can and can't do. We're handing that over to you, and we're saying, every context will be dealt with in a different way. We don't necessarily have all the answers. So it's going to be difficult for us to prescribe at the beginning of the project what your investigation is going to look like.
And we continue to enjoy this as a process and just relax about that. You'll get a lot of guidance in your teams with your team leaders in terms of what you might allow in those particular teams. And I think there was a lot that was presented in terms of just the content that was presented in terms of ethics, in terms of where to start. Angus said start with people, and I'm kind of challenging my master's students this quarter. We started off by looking at the built fabric and spaces rather than speaking to people, and we're doing that as an experiment. So it's those kind of conversations within your teams that I think will be really useful. I found the ethical things that Brandon raised so incredibly relevant. I'm sure that our architecture students have done this. I've done it. I'm a culprit. We've kind of gone in, we've worked with communities, we've left, we've never gone back, like Angus said, revisited and measured. We've never really known how to measure whether we disrupted existing systems or made a genuine contribution, whether it was sustainable or not. So a lot of the ethical stuff that Brendan's raising is incredibly relevant for us to start engaging in. I just want to shift the conversation from what do we now need to produce as student teams to what is actually being presented to you in terms of ideas and concepts that you might work with. And then the other stuff will get resolved in the smaller teams.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask, you mentioned normative ethics. I know if you say so, please repeat what you meant by ethics. So we can get a clear understanding.
Clear understanding. I think ethics is one of those terms where clear understanding is not what you can gather, very easily. I think philosophers have been arguing about ethics, for centuries. All of them. It's not something where you can necessarily say this is right and this is wrong. I think it's a lot more complicated than that. What I'm trying to say is that if we have normative ideas of ethics, in other words, received understandings of what ethics are, that we just accept as given, my argument is that prevents us from engaging ethically. Do you see what I'm getting at? So for me, just ticking a box and saying my participant knows what the project's about, therefore, and they've given me consent, I think that's too easy. Because if you actually ask a participant what the project's about, their understanding of it is completely different to yours. So you can't claim that they've informed consent because their understanding of the aims of the project is different to yours. And I think if we just say, well, I've done my ethics thing, I've got my clearance, it stops you thinking from the ethical issues that the project raises. So I'm very hesitant to give a clear definition of ethics. Okay, should we continue? We're running 15 minutes behind, but that's fine because I think we'll only need half an hour discussion